Hi everyone, Ellen here again with my fifth video in my series Coexisting with Agoraphobia, Anxiety, and Panic Attacks. In this video I'd like to talk to you about something I call my toolbox. And my toolbox is basically a list of go-to things that I use when I'm feeling extremely stressed or anxious. It seems to me that in this life we all have something. We have crosses to bear and mountains to climb, challenges to try to overcome. And to me, it seems like it would be helpful, if not wise, to always have a list of things that we could go to that would help us cope with these stressful situations. This may be a little bit of trial and error, because sometimes what we use to help soothe ourselves or to cope may work, and the very next time that same thing may not work. So there's a lot of wisdom in collecting as long a list as you can of things that you know might be helpful during stressful situations. The first thing that I have on my list is breathing exercises. Now, I learned a long time ago that if I practice breathing exercises on a regular basis, I'm more apt to keep my anxiety down to some degree and perhaps not overreact in certain situations. But also, if I do find myself in an unusually stressful or anxious, panicky situation, breathing exercises can be very helpful. Now, the simplest breathing exercise that I can share with you is simply counting to the beat of 4, such as in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. Now, if you do this even for 15 or 20 minutes a day, it can be very helpful in trying to keep your body calmer and more level on a regular basis. And in during a time of stress or high anxiety, you can do it longer. It's also very helpful if you're hyperventilating. Just keep breathing in to the count of 4 slowly and rhythmically, and out for as long as you have to. And you will find probably that your heart rate will come down, your breathing rate will come down, most likely your catastrophic thoughts and your racing thoughts will slow down or cease. So try it. It's especially helpful, I think, at bedtime. It can help you get a better night's sleep. And these are just wonderful practices. There's a doctor called Dr. Andrew Weil, W-E-I-L, who's an expert in the field, and he has a couple of great CDs out there. So maybe you'd like to look into some of his stuff. I also do something called alternate nostril breathing, which you can find on the internet. And just as the name suggests, you close one nostril off and breathe through the other, and then alternately close that one off and breathe through the initial nostril. You can find directions for these things on the internet. I recommend that you probably just, especially initially, find simple and basic things to do. They're not harmful, and they can be very helpful. There's also an application that I found called the Breathing Zone. I use it for my iPad, but it's also available now for Android. So there might be something you want to look into. If I find that I do that for, say, 30 minutes a night, I can have wonderful results with a better night's sleep. That particular app just helps you to regulate your breathing, and you can set a goal for how many breaths per minute you would like to take, and the fewer per minute, the better. The more it will slow down your entire system. Anyway, that's a very important part of my toolbox that I wanted to share with you. The next thing that I have on my list is positive self-talk. Now, I've noticed in my life that what I tell myself or believe to be true usually turns out to be true, at least for me. If I believe that a situation is horrible or terrible, it will probably have less than favorable results. On the other hand, if I tell myself that this is something I can do, or try to take it in stride, saying things like, I have been here before, I've gotten through this before, I've never had disastrous results, I can ride out these feelings and still accomplish what I want to, I'm more likely to be able to do that. People with anxiety seem to feel that they need to have other people encourage them and support and soothe them, especially in very difficult and anxious times. We get scared that we're not going to be okay or that it's not going to pass. And we're always looking to someone else to reassure us. But if we can learn to talk positively to ourselves, give ourselves those loving, kind, and soothing messages, we'll have a tool that we'll have with us at all times, no matter where we go. So I really would suggest that you practice daily to try to talk to yourself in a very upbeat and positive manner, and try to believe to the best of your ability what you're telling yourself. It's really not even that important that you believe it, because your brain will still react to the words you're telling it. So until you can actually digest it and get it into your heart and into your whole being, what you're saying, just say the words anyway. It's like affirmations. Just keep saying it over and over, that you'll be okay, this situation will work out, you've been in it before, you'll be fine. Eventually, you will begin to believe it. And it's a great tool to have regularly in your toolbox, and hopefully something that you will learn to practice on a daily basis. The next thing on my list is to try to put your anxiety in the background. Now I know you're saying, I don't know how in the world I can do that. And certainly there are times when it feels like it is an impossible thing to do. But what I'm suggesting is that you learn to coexist with it. Put it to the side, or really let it be in the back of your mind, and not the main focus of every minute of your day, which is so easy to do if you are having anxiety fairly regularly, as I do, and I have for decades, to be honest. It's a matter of degree, intensity, but it's always there. So if you can learn to focus on what you want to do in any given day, what you'd like to create, what you'd like to accomplish in your house, if you want to wash your car, or do something on the computer, or write a book, do gardening and planting, whatever it is that you like to do, that you think you'll find pleasure in doing, or that you'll feel like you've accomplished something at the end of the day, try to put your main focus on that. Certainly practice going out, or whatever your difficulty is with the anxiety. But don't let that be the only thing that rules your day, especially if you had a bad day with it and it didn't work. It's only part of your day. Don't let it take up all of your focus. And that works very well for me. I'm pretty successful in doing that most of the time. Most of you may know by now that I have a small business that I run, and I keep up with my house and pets and friends, regardless of how I feel. There are very few days that I have when I feel kind of frozen and stuck, that I'm paralyzed, if you will, with the anxiety. Most of the time, I just get up and get moving, put one foot in front of the other, put the anxiety in the back of my mind, and simply accept the fact that it's there. Which brings me to my next thing on the list, which is acceptance. Acceptance is a huge word. Rather than getting up every day hoping that this will be gone, or that the day will be better, if we can learn to simply accept however we feel the minute we get out of bed, and not be disappointed when it's not something else, we're going to be so much better off. Dr. Claire Weeks was a pioneer in the field of agoraphobia, and many years ago she came out with a few books, one of which is Peace from Nervous Suffering, I believe it's called. And that's at one point that she always stressed. acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. Because you add more anxiety and perhaps even depression when you get up and you're not feeling the way you would like to. So if you just can, again, there is no better word, accept it, put it in the background, and go about your day, you will get used to functioning that way. And the key is you will be functioning a lot better. So it's not to say that it's not ever going to go away. But while you have it, try to put it in the background, accept that it's there, and go on and accomplish everything that you can in any given day. And at the end of the day, if you can say, I did the best I could with this day, that should be good enough for anybody. Okay, the next thing on my list is distractions. Distracting yourself from anxiety that is going on in the present moment can be really helpful. I think I just gave a couple of examples of that. For me, I can get lost in my work sometimes, or again, most of you know that I just wrote a book last year, and that required a lot of concentrated focus. And I like gardening. I like working with bonsai plants. Find something that you love to do, that you think you can get totally lost in. And at times of high anxiety, try to see if you can put all of your focus there, if possible. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes one thing will, again, and another thing won't. But I find that things that require the most intense concentration work the best for me, because I have to, whether it's doing figures, you balance your checkbook, you have to pay attention. Get your mind off the anxiety. I have a funny story about distractions. Actually, I have a couple of funny stories, but this one in particular. Distractions can take many forms. It can be trying to focus on something other than the anxiety, and it can be humor. You can solicit friends or family to try to help you, to distract you with a story of their own. Maybe something exciting that you didn't know before that will really get your attention. Or ask somebody that you know to tell you something about themselves that you never would have guessed. That happened to me a couple times, and I was shocked. I was so interested in the story, I forgot that I was anxious. Even once that happened to me going over a big bridge. And a friend of mine started telling me something, and I wasn't sure it was true, but it was such an interesting story. It got my attention off the fear of being on top of that bridge. The other story that I have is going to a mall. I was practicing several years ago trying to go to the mall, and a friend of mine was with me and knew me very well and saw that I was starting to panic. I was only maybe barely a quarter of the way in the mall, and I knew I had to stop and turn around and head for the exit, and so did she. So she saw my face, and she grabbed me by the scruff of the neck, and she pointed me towards the exit, and while we were headed towards the exit, she stopped me at every store that was on the way. They all had glass storefronts, and she made me look in, and she said, if you don't stop this, you see this store? We're going to go inside, and I'm going to put a job application in for you there, and you're going to have to work there. And I started to laugh, and I was panicking, but I was laughing at the same time. And then we go towards the exit a little more, and then she'd stop me at the next door, and she'd say, see what they have in here? I hope you like the products, because you're going to be selling them soon. So anyway, laughter can be a wonderful distraction. In this case, my help, I got a lot of help from my friend. So try to solicit help from your friends and family, when you're feeling particularly upset. And see if you can get them to change your chain of thoughts at the moment. And obviously in that situation, I did get back to the car, and I was fine. The next thing I have on my list is meditation and relaxation. I really can't emphasize the importance of this enough. These days, meditation has become very popular, especially something called mindful meditation. And mindful meditation really It's just about trying to get you to stay in the present moment with your thoughts. We're back to focus. Trying to focus on what you're doing right now. Like I'm talking to you and I'm trying to give my undivided attention to this camera and to this work and to the messages I'm trying to get across. If you study meditation, and practice it on a daily basis, just like the breathing that I talked about earlier, you'll find that on a regular basis you will start to not react as quickly, probably, to anxiety-provoking situations, and generally you will find yourself going through the day feeling a whole lot better. I do about 20 or 30 minutes a night, usually, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful help to me. You can do all kinds of things. You can find here, even on YouTube, they have relaxation exercises, yoga meditations, all kinds of things that you can do. And don't be fooled by the word meditation. It doesn't just have to mean some kind of formal practice. And practice it is. You don't ever have to worry about getting it right. Just sitting and being and trying to slow down in itself is doing it. There's no way to get it perfect. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to try to put the time in to sit down and listen to a relaxation message, whether it be on CD or video or whatever. Simple things like listening to music, putting your whole heart into it, letting it fill your being, listening to nature, watching nature. All of those things can be very meditative. One thing that I found when I'm having my worst days and some of the other things don't work for me, I found that if I try to meditate, meaning just think, on earlier times in my life when I was not so filled with anxiety, and those times were primarily when I was in college. First 2 years of college were wonderful years for me. I very much got in touch with the spiritual side of myself. I was very relaxed. I was in love with the world because the anxiety had passed for a while. I was the president of my sorority. I had friends. To me, I really came into my whole being at that time. I wasn't so concerned about grades. I just wanted to drink in my surroundings, be so happy that I could sit in class and not be panicking. And I wanted to enjoy my friends and really get into their lives and be with them. I mean, life just took on a whole new meaning for me at that time because the anxiety had subsided. So if I let myself go back and think about that and get in touch with that inner part of me that I know is still here, it doesn't go away. Our real, true, authentic inner being gets smothered and squashed by anxiety. But that part of us is still there. So I think on it and I try to feel it again and remember it and be it. And I start to feel better and I feel more like me. Even if the minute I get up I start being anxious because of what's going on in my environment or a situation that I'm having in my life that's stressing me out. Try to spend as much time as you can tapping the real inner core of yourself and loving yourself and that part of you, and trust that one day it will come to the forefront more and more and more, because it's always possible, that this will pass and you will have worked through your issues or the anxiety, and you can get back to being that wonderful self that you once knew yourself to be. Okay, the next thing I have on my list is humor. Well, a little humor goes a very long way. Like everybody else, if we can learn to laugh at ourselves, life is so much easier. And I think this kind of just stands on its own. Everybody knows what I mean. I will give you an example or two of very humorous things that happened to me because of my agoraphobia and anxiety. Many years ago, I have a parrot now. Her name is Gracie. and I had another one, an African gray named Crackers. And one night I was going to put Crackers away in his cage because he was out on a stand all day, and at night I put him in the cage to keep him safe. And I was especially anxious, and I put him on the stick, and I was walking him towards the cage, or so I thought. And then when I kind of came to a little bit, or a little more conscious from being so engrossed in the anxiety, I realized that I was trying to stuff the bird in the microwave. and yeah, I caught it before I closed the door and pushed the button. And I did the same thing another time. It wasn't too much later when I had him on the stick and I thought I was putting him away, and I was trying to stuff the poor guy in the garbage can. So there are lots of funny stories we can have from this, not so funny in the moment, but hey, you gotta laugh at yourself and laugh as much as you can, because it really makes a big difference. Okay, next thing on my list here is diet, and I will keep this really simple because I think most of us know that there are two major things that really trigger us, can increase anxiety, and that's sugar and caffeine. So if we avoid them or keep them to as much of a minimum as possible, it may be a big help in keeping our anxiety down. And the other thing I wanted to say along the lines of diet was, I learned years ago when I went to a class on agoraphobia, I was able to go out to the class, that anxiety wreaks havoc with our blood sugar. And the best thing to ingest to try to keep blood sugar level is protein. So if we were practicing going out, driving, if driving was a difficult thing for us, we were told to carry with us things like a hard-boiled egg, a slice of cheese, a chicken leg, and even a jar of peanut butter, and take a teaspoon of it or so, because they were very anxiety-producing situations. We're practicing and trying to stretch out of our comfort zone. And if we kept that protein in our body, it would help level off the blood sugar that can often mimic anxiety, because it can cause you to be weak and shaky. So that's just a tip. If you keep yourself on a kind of a high protein diet, or have protein on a regular basis, especially when you're very anxious, it might help you to feel better on any given day. Okay, I have a prop. Sometimes I use props for things. Like most of us probably know that being very anxious can cause us sometimes to feel weak, shaky, weak in the knees, wobbly legs, jelly legs, sometimes they call them. Have a little trouble balancing and walking. And I keep a cane in the house at all times. I used to have a bad knee, but I find that it is also helpful at times like that, especially if I'm going to walk out to the mailbox or something. If it's a really bad day, it doesn't happen often. But just knowing that it's here, I grab the cane just so that I feel a little steadier, and it's helpful just to know that it's there. There are other times when I will use props. Again, these are times of really high anxiety. I'll put things, for example, in my safe place. If you're sitting in a chair all day, or say you're going to go to bed, and you're afraid you're going to be panicky during the night, and afraid that you can't get up, especially if there's nobody around, you might keep things alongside your bed on your nightstand, such as your medication, if you take anti-anxiety medication, water, food, crackers, things of that nature, a cool rag, which sometimes is helpful, make you feel a little bit better, your phone numbers, even a bucket in case you're afraid you're going to get sick. You have it right there, and you know that it's okay if you really can't get to the bathroom. You'll feel better just knowing that you're a little bit prepared. Next thing on my list is headphones. Now, I use headphones very often. I love music. It often does calm me down, especially, slower, soothing music. But I also use it at times when, say, I'm cutting the lawn outside. It keeps me focused on the music rather than I'm outside and I might be nervous. I'm in Florida, so the heat is horrendous here, and the heat and light can be triggers for us. So if I listen to the headphones, it's a distraction, and it can help me through a lot of situations. Even if I'm visiting, people who know that I have the anxiety disorder, if I'm visiting with somebody, I can put the headphones on, the earbuds to my MP3 player, and keep it on very low, and I can still hear them and focus on what they're saying, but I'll have the music in the background, and that distracts me a little bit and calms me. Sometimes I'll just put one earbud in so I can half listen to the music and half be in the conversation. It may seem a little weird to some people. Most people don't care. People wear them all the time these days anyway. But we have to do whatever works. If it's a prop that will help us in a situation to be able to do it, by all means use it, whatever it is that works for you. Okay, next on my list is think creatively. And by that I just mean use the computer or whatever it is that you may have in your house to help you with getting focused on something interesting. That's my dog. Cats can also be a very good distraction. Dreamer, want to come and say hi? Drake. Come here, Drake. Want to come and say hi? I'm trying to get him to come. Hello, baby. He's got a little eye problem right now. But yes, actually, animals can be wonderful source of comfort, and definitely, as we just saw, a distraction. But anyway, back to being creative. I am a creative person. Most of us are very creative people. We're very intelligent and very creative. And if we can get involved with something that will make us feel like we're producing, and being productive, whether it be along the lines of work that we do or just things like Christmas things, make Christmas cards, it can really be fulfilling and, again, take our minds off of what the anxiety is doing to us. Okay, next on the list, gosh, this is so important to me. Plan ahead. If you're going to have somebody over for dinner, especially something like that, or do some entertaining, if you can make something ahead of time so you don't feel under such pressure or even scrutiny, and have it in the refrigerator and just pop it in the oven so when people come, you don't have that on your mind. It's a great way to handle that kind of a situation. Also, try to be on time for appointments. Allow yourself enough time for everything. And I think you'll find that you'll be able to do most things a lot better because you're not going to feel rushed and under so much pressure. I know when I feel like I'm out of time and I have a lot of things to do or someone's coming and I haven't prepared properly, it makes my anxiety much, much worse. Okay, take baby steps in all things that you want to accomplish. Well, by now, hopefully we really all do know that. It's one step, one small step at a time. And what people think about it shouldn't matter. If we are practicing driving and all we can do every day for a month is get from the garage to the end of the driveway, without high anxiety, the importance here is to keep the anxiety down, not to get somewhere. I talk about this a lot in my video on desensitization. A lot of the stuff that we could do that would help us, we don't want to do because we think people are going to think we're weird. But we have to get past that and learn to do things in very small increments and practice them so we can overcome them, no matter how weird it looks to someone else. So if you know the movie What About Bob, and he talks about baby steps all the time, it might be a good movie for you to watch. It's really an important thing to to do to give yourself permission to just do things slowly, small bits at a time, so that you can make them manageable, so you can accomplish them. Next thing on my list is utilize good friends or a counselor if you have them. I use this tool often. I am blessed with a couple of friends who really know me and are willing to listen, not just about my issues with anxiety or from under a particular stress, but just good friends in general. And I've had counselors on and off most of my life, and they're wonderful. And expressing feelings, expressing how you feel, I call it venting. I think venting is healthy. And there's a difference between whining and venting. Venting to me is just because emotions, including anxiety, are just energy. They can be very powerful balls of energy. And if we vent, we get it out, and we can feel better that way. The important thing, I think, to remember here is to make sure it goes two ways, that you also listen to your friends, not just you be the one venting about things at all times. And the other part of that is to make sure that when you're having your conversations, especially with friends, to make sure that there's balance and that it's not always about what's wrong or how you feel. Make sure you're talking about other things, interesting things, lighter things, so that there can be a well-roundedness to your connection and your friendship. But friends and counselors to me have been a blessing and have gotten me through more situations than I can tell you. Now the last thing that I have on my list here is something called the ABCD principle. And this is a tool that can be extremely helpful in dealing with our negative thinking or catastrophic thoughts. We create so much misery for ourselves with negative thinking and anticipating the worst in most situations, and that's probably true for all of us with anxiety problems. With this method, we challenge those thoughts. I've used it hundreds of times with wonderful results. Now, basically, the ABCD method means that you're going to write down your negative thoughts, and then you're going to try to counter them or challenge them with more realistic and positive thoughts. In ABCD, the A stands for the activating event that's triggered your anxiety. For example, today I went to the grocery store and I had a panic attack. So the activating event for the anxiety is going to the grocery store. And B stands for the belief that you have about the triggering event. And that usually takes the form of something like, I will get so anxious, or I will go crazy if I go into the store, because every time I go into the store, I get anxious, or I have a panic attack. So you believe in your mind that if you go to the store, that's going to happen. And that if that keeps happening, people are going to look at you and think that you're weird, or you might go crazy. So that's your belief about it. And C in the ABC method stands for the consequence. What is the consequence of thinking that way? The consequence is usually avoidance. So first, the activating event is I go to the grocery store. B, and I have a panic attack. B is my belief about it. My belief then becomes, if I go to the grocery store, I'm going to get anxious and panicky. People are going to think I'm weird or crazy, or I might just go crazy if it happens too often. And as a result, the consequence is I start avoiding the grocery store. And over time, that expands to other areas until your territory becomes so small that you can end up agoraphobic. So the D in ABCD stands for dispute. To dispute this belief system. So the dispute could go something like, I go to the grocery store, I've gone many times when I didn't have a panic attack. Or, there are many people that go to the grocery store and feel weird in some ways. They may have other disabilities. They may feel weak and shaky in the store. But when I look at them, I don't think of them as weird or crazy. So why would they necessarily have to think of me that way. Or this has happened to me many times, and I never did go crazy. I never did end up in the mental institution. I've always had, I was going to say a good outcome. I mean, a good outcome in the form of nothing's ever really happened, except I had to tolerate a lot of anxiety and bad feelings. But I never really did have that heart attack I was afraid I was going to have, and I never did go crazy. And the other thing that I was going to say about that is what people think always seems to be very important to us as well. I said this a little bit before, but if we're out in a situation that seems to stop us or have a big influence on us, we're afraid to do something because we're afraid that we're going to look weird. And what are people going to think about us? And we need to get past that because it stops us from progressing and moving forward. There was a saying that they used in that program that I went to several years ago. What other people think is none of my business. Just go about your day, live it the best you can, practice doing whatever things you want to try to stretch your comfort zone a little bit, things that you can't do very well. Just keep practicing, driving, having company, going to the grocery store, or any of those things in small increments, and not worry about what other people are thinking about your reactions or the fact that you're doing things in tiny pieces or however you have to do it to accomplish it. Try to put that out of your mind. I have a chart here with the ABCD method. It's very helpful to use index cards or a piece of paper or a legal pad or something and just write down, make a couple of columns, 4 columns, A, B, C, D, activating event, whoops, I don't think you can see that, activating event, belief system, consequence, and the dispute. And in this instance, I used what I had already suggested to you before. The activating event would be a panic attack in the grocery store. My belief will be I will always get panicky when I go to the grocery store. I will have a heart attack. I will go crazy. People will think I'm weird. Consequences, I stop going to the grocery store. And then you can dispute it in any of the ways that I had just suggested. Panic attacks are not physically harmful. I have never had a heart attack or gone crazy. People are not necessarily even looking at me. I'm thinking that people are thinking that I'm all these things. They're not paying any attention to me, really. How important am I? So anyway, try that. And I hope that it works for you. Okay? Anyway, I hope that this set of tools has been of some use to you. I hope that you use them in the future and have some success with them. And you can look up online, as I said, especially about the meditation stuff, the breathing exercises. There are a lot of things out there. The important thing is to commit to doing them a little bit every day so we can keep reinforcing our brain that there are tools that will help us if we keep practicing them and using them, that our life will improve. So till next time, I thank you again for watching, and I expect to make one more video in this series, and I hope to see you there. Okay. Thank you, and namaste.